Hi everybody, it's Anne with Art on the Creek. I have a really fun treat for us today. I've been digging in my paints and I have all of the ultramarines that I have that are professional, and I thought we could swatch them out today and see which one is right for you. It's my favorite color. Maybe you like it too. Let's get to swatching, shall we? If you are a member of my channel, you have already seen this review and you already know which ones I like the best and why. But if you're not yet a member, just check out the description below. There will be a link where you can learn all of the benefits, including early access to comparison videos like the one you're about to see. Thank you, by the way, for voting for this. I have another comparison coming up, and that one will be on lapis lazuli. And historically, these pigments have a little bit in common in that ground lapis lazuli was increasingly used by painters during the 13th and 14th centuries to make ultramarine. Widely known today as the master of painting the Virgin in prayer, this oil painting by Italian artist Giovanni Battista Salvi di Sassoferrato was painted in the mid-17th century. You can see by the almost ethereal quality of this blue why it was so sought after. In fact, in one of the most famous paintings in the world, Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring, her headscarf was also painted using lapis lazuli. Ultramarine is one of my favorite pigments, and it's one that I use very, very often. I use it to mix with burnt sienna or burnt umber to create my darks. I love the way it granulates, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to take a look at several different brands. Here are the brands that I have that we're going to look at. First off, we're going to check out Beam, and then Blick's house brand, Blocks, which is really kind of cool. This is an interesting brand here. Da Vinci, which I absolutely love. Daniel Smith, Jackson's, which is rumored to be Sennelier paints. We'll find out here shortly if they're the same. Lucas 1862, M. Graham, Maimeri Blue out of Italy. Marie's Masters, and Michael Harding. I am starting to get into this brand here. I really like them, so this will be a fun one to try, their ultramarine. And one of my all-time favorites, the Magello Mission Gold. This one's almost gone, you can see. I really do like these paints. And then we've got Old Holland. I've never tried this one. This will be interesting. Paul Rubens, which I recommend for my students. It is purported to be a professional brand of paint, and I have never had any problems with it, so I thought I would put those in there. PwC Core, which is going to supposedly have a lot of flow. I don't often use Core paints, but we will check this one out. And what's this guy? Oh, Rembrandt here. I have a lot of Rembrandt pastels, but not Rembrandt watercolors. Roman Schmal, Rosa Gallery out of Ukraine. The Sennelier, I have a travel kit here of Sennelier, and Schminke Horadam, Utrecht, and then this one here is White Knights. It is out of Russia. I do know that there is a war going on. However, I purchased these years before the conflict. I want to include it because in this palette they include an ultramarine light and an ultramarine dark. I like the paints. This is not meant to be a political statement. I've also got the Rosa Gallery here, and I love these. I use the Rosa Galleries more often than the White Knights. But I have to tell you, if you have a political agenda and that shows up in the comments, your comments will be deleted. We're going to keep this about the pigments, about the paints today. Thank you for that, by the way. And then finally, we've got Winsor Newton Professional. So first up, let me get these all labeled here, and then I will be back and we can start swatching and having some fun. We'll focus on the swatch sheet itself. This is 100% cotton paper. I really like these. They are the Painter's Color Diary. I'm going to link to everything I have here in the description, so in case you guys are interested in any of this, it will be available through a link there. And those links are affiliate links. They do go to help my channel. No extra cost to you, but if you click on the link and then do some shopping, a portion of that will go back to me, And I guarantee you it's a small portion, but it'll go back to me, and that will help me to purchase things like this so that we can make videos like this and have some fun. Beam paints. These are out of Canada. It is a legacy brand handmade by the Maching First Nation tribe on Manitoulin Island, and the focus is on high quality pigment content and creating sublime artist materials with plastic-free packaging. Unfortunately, of all of the professional and student-grade paints that I have, these beam paints are just inherently frustrating for me to use as an artist. I'm not a fan. I know that they've got a very loyal fan base, and my hat's off to you if you use these and like them. I don't like the way they're packaged. The paint stones, the paper that's wrapped around them tends to get wet and swell, and then you have a hard time putting the paint stone back in the wooden birch block that these particular ones are packaged in. The divot on the bottom of the paint stone makes it very difficult to adhere it into a tin. I don't know, I understand what their mission is, and I appreciate what they're doing, but for practicality, they're just not on my list of preferences. And in addition to that, frankly, I think that there are so many other brands out there that just perform better. And that is totally my personal opinion. If you use beam paints and love them, please continue to do so. And I'm very happy that you found something that you like. Next, let's take a look at the Blick in-house brand. And this one is a French Ultramarine blue. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between French Ultramarine and regular Ultramarine. According to Jackson's Art, which is out of the UK and a store and brand that I really trust, I really love their blog. They do a lot of research and information. So since they've already done the research, I will share what they have with you from their November 5th, 2019 blog regarding the difference between Ultramarine and French Ultramarine. French Ultramarine is slightly warmer or redder and more granulating, whereas Ultramarine blue is cooler, more green, and less granulating. Next up, we have Blox, which is a brand out of Belgium. This is actually a French Ultramarine blue deep. And they have only been making watercolor since 1982, but they definitely have been working in the artist's industry since 1865. So this one I'm really curious to try. They do sell their watercolors in something called these mega pans. I've seen them on St. Louis Art Supply, I want to say, and the pans are made of porcelain. They're lovely, lovely large pans and very easy to use in that you can get any size brush in there. So I was very kind of intrigued with this brand because I do love a big pan. But this one came in tubes, so I thought, okay, well, great. This is a good way to jump in and try it without really having to have that one singular ceramic pan around. So I did decide to go ahead and add this brand to our test. Ultramarine Deep is going to be very similar to French Ultramarine in that it's going to be a touch warmer than just a straightforward Ultramarine. Next up is Da Vinci Permanent Artist Ultramarine Blue, and that usage of the word permanent, this pigment is in fact a permanent pigment. Underneath ideal conditions, that's why it has such a light fastness to it. It is sometimes referred to as permanent, and the Da Vinci brand does use that on their label. This brand is becoming my all-time favorite. It is so transparent. Just about every single color that I have used, every single one of these paints, the watercolors that I have tried that are Da Vinci, they are so transparent and so easy to layer, and they mix beautifully. Da Vinci are truly becoming some of my very favorite paints. Now let's go to another tried and true standard. We've got Daniel Smith here, and I'm just going to open this little package. I've never purchased an individual pan of Daniel Smith. I have received them in other packaging or gifts or things like that, like an art subscription kit. But I've never purchased one just on its own. I bought this specifically because I do have a palette already that I want to put in here, and I'm going to have to write on here what this is because I know that I will forget. So I'm just putting on the side here Ultramarine abbreviated because I'm using a very large pen. PB29 is the pigment we're dealing with today, and then this pan, and you can see there's some little peaks and ridges on the top of the pan. These pans are hand poured. You know, that's just one way to package and sell watercolor. It really has no effect on its performance, but I will tell you, Daniel Smith is such a good brand for so many great reasons. They're out of Oregon. They have an extensive range of colors. And yeah, if you're looking for a color and you may not be able to find it, try Daniel Smith because probably they will have it. And yeah, this is really easy to re-wet and very easy to use. Next up, let's try the Jackson's watercolor. Now, rumor has it, and it's, you know, why wouldn't it be true? It's fine. There are some brands that are white labeled, but Sennelier is rumored to be the formulation that is used in Jackson's watercolors. I really like these watercolors. They re-wet very easily. Look at that beautiful, beautiful pigment that goes down. In fact, all of these have been lovely so far. But I think as we build this row, you can already begin to see how these pigments have slightly different values. I'm trying to be as consistent as I possibly can when I'm swatching these down. But, you know, I'm human, and there might be a little bit of variation here and there. Let's take a look next at the Lucas 1862 brand. I recently did a review on this particular one. I think I've reviewed just about everything on here. There are a few paints, though, here as I swatch through all of these that I have not reviewed the brand. So if you see something on here that you're curious about, make a little note of it, make a request in the comments, and maybe we'll get to that review next. These, you can see the way that when these filled in the palettes, these filled kind of strangely. I really like these paints. They're not my favorite, but I do like them. And I think if you're looking for a good way to get into some professional watercolors, this brand, the Lucas 1862, is a good brand to do. I think you might be better off going with some of the other brands, for instance, like Da Vinci. But yeah, I really did enjoy using the Lucas paints and didn't really have any problem with them whatsoever. This next one here is M. Graham. They are out of Oregon also, just like Daniel Smith, and they are the first brand that I tried that I really fell in love with as a professional paint, because I started off using Daniel Smith simply because it was so widely available. And I still use Daniel Smith. Of course, I go back and forth. I'm not really brand loyal to one brand, although I do kind of tip more toward the Da Vinci simply because of their layering capabilities and their transparency. The M. Graham, though, is so lovely because of its honey content. Now, if you live in a dry climate, really consider this brand, or Sennelier also has honey in it. It will change your life, I promise. At any rate, the M. Graham was the first professional brand that I really fell in love with, and it's because in Colorado, the paints re-wet so beautifully. Look at that nice slow flow. I really like that, you guys. I like it when the flow of the paint is slow enough that I can control it, but I can also enjoy watching it do its watercolor tricks. I do like that a little bit. I do know that if you live in a very humid, very sticky climate, the honey paints might be a little more challenging for you to use. Mayberry Blue is out of Italy, and I really enjoy this brand as well. This one acts just a little bit differently. The paint seems to be somewhat milky when it's coming out. Not a plus or a minus. These are all just characteristical, great. Observational characteristics that I'm finding of these paints. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I'm not a speechwriter. You know, I can speak very well when I'm writing, and I probably should write myself a script, but I do like just watching the playback and giving you guys kind of my opinion as it shoots off my hip, if it were, and sometimes I get some words wrong, so sorry about that. Just look at it as part of my artisanal charm. This is Michael Harding, and let's talk a little bit about this brand. Michael Harding says on his website that he has made paint for 40 years and received countless requests, and now he takes pride in launching a range of 136 finely ground watercolors. The watercolors will amaze with their color strength, vibrance, clarity, and longevity. They are really looked at as some of the better brands out on the market, and they can certainly compete with the finest watercolors out there. They are lovely. They are wonderful to use. I have very little experience with them, but I am finding that I am really enjoying them over and over again. So I'm pretty excited to add this one to my little family of watercolor here. And I really like how this ultramarine is performing. Ultramarine is one of my favorite colors because it is so versatile. You can use it for sky, you can use it in skin tones, you can use it in a seascape, you can mix beautiful greens with it. I love that it's a warm blue. The cool blues have a tendency, in my eye anyway, to be a little bit intense, a little bit too much vibration on that color scale there. I really enjoy using ultramarine blue because to me this is such a calm, peaceful blue. I really, really enjoy it. Next up, we have Magello Mission Gold from Korea. This is the next professional paint that I think I kind of got hooked on because of its honey formulation. Again, honey is a humectant and it works very well in a dry climate, and this one in particular has some beautiful granulation. You can already see it happening. I really love these Mission Gold paints. Look for sales on Amazon when you're looking. I'll put as many links down below as I can. I got this set of, I want to say it was 18 tubes for an excellent price. It was only, I think, $60, but I've been watching that same set and it keeps going up. So not entirely sure what kind of price point they've got right now, but I will do my best to link to all of these things here. I guess that's probably the best thing to do to make it easier on you guys in case there's something here that really catches your eye. Old Holland, another brand that is brand new to me. Old Holland has a range of 168 colors, and as most brands, they say that they are made from the best and purest pigments, maximum pigmentation. Their binder is based on gum arabic or glycerin, and they do a silk screened example of the undertone of the color on the tube. So that's why this blue on the tube looks a little bit different than what we see here. They're looking at that very underneath warm blue temperature. And so that's kind of a new way to identify paints based on their wrapper. One thing I didn't mention is Michael Harding is out of the UK, and Old Holland, of course, is out of Holland. They really value their heritage from the work of the masters, the Dutch masters, and their paints are purported to be used by artists and restorers around the globe. Paul Rubens is out of China, and they are a really nice company. I love their paper. I love their paints. This is one of the brands that I recommend for my my watercolor students. If you're just beginning, I typically recommend the Winsor Newton Cotman or these Paul Rubens paints. The thing that I really like about the Paul Rubens over the Winsor Newton Cotman, number one, the Cotman has changed their formula a little bit. And some of the paints are just different. I still like the way they perform those, so I still do recommend them. But these Paul Rubens, you can start off right out of the gate with a professional watercolor in a convenient pan shape and size, easy to carry around. The paper is good; it's 100% cotton, and you can get the paints really easily, and they're just not that expensive. So now let's look at this PWC. This is a brand that I haven't really seen around too often, but it's really pretty cool. Now, I did purchase the Ultramarine Deep in this one, and it is the Shin Han PWC Extra Fine Professional Watercolor. They've got some interesting information on the Blick website about ultramarine in general here, so I will talk about that as I'm swatching this one out. The history of the word ultramarine, it comes from the Middle Latin ultra, meaning beyond, and mare, meaning sea, because it was imported from Asia to Europe by sea. It is a prominent component of lapis lazuli, and we'll talk about that one in a future video, and was used on Asian temples starting in the 6th century. It was one of the most expensive pigments in 16th century Europe, worth twice its weight in gold, and so was used sparingly, and when commissions were larger. Ultramarine is currently imitated by a process invented in France in 1826 by Jean-Baptiste Guimet, making blue affordable to artists and extending the range of colors on their palettes. And there also is a chemically created ultramarine as opposed to a natural ultramarine. Let's talk about core paints. This is really kind of cool. Watch how this paint just zooms across here when we get it wet. Here, let me get my brush good and wet, and we'll go ahead and spread this out. And I hope you can see, yes, how quickly that's just zooming across the water. That is a characteristic that is unique to core paints. Many of you are probably quite familiar with core. They're made by Golden. And they are, it says here on their website, a modern watercolor made with an exclusive Aquazol binder. It is proprietary there. And it says that because of that binder, it provides more pigment in every brush stroke, as well as a color strength, range, and versatility unmatched in the history of watercolors. They are unique. I will give them that absolutely 100%. They are really different than every single other watercolor that I have had or used. Next one up, we're going to take a look at Rembrandt. And like I mentioned before, I have an awful lot of Rembrandt pastels, the soft pastels, chalk ones, but I've never really used a Rembrandt watercolor before. Rembrandt watercolors are made from pigment and gum arabic, and like all other professional watercolors, they do say that they are formulated using the highest concentration of pigment and pure gum arabic, producing intense colors. This particular one, it could be the way that I swatched it down, or, you know, just in this little test here. It looks a little bit more pale, as in the pigment doesn't look quite as intense, but I'm loving the granulation. So I'm pretty sure that when that one mixes up and I can get that binder reincorporated in there when I put it in a pan, it's going to be quite lovely to use. Roman Schmal is absolutely a delight. Their watercolors are made in Poland. They are made in very small batches, and that keeps the production more consistent and dependable quality control. That's what they purport. And they also have an impressive, and it is impressive, 180 shades in the range. For a small company, that really is quite a bit. According to Jackson's blog, again, the majority of these 180 shades, at least 117 of them, are single pigment colors. So it really is a beautiful, beautiful set. I am in love with this Aquarius mixing set that I got, and I absolutely love the vibrancy of these colors. They are really, truly, I think, unmatched in a lot of, when you compare them with a lot of brands. So now we'll move on to the Rosa Gallery watercolors. These are really cool and kind of new on the scene, at least in the United States. They are out of the Ukraine. I love the shade of blue on this watercolor tin, and I purchased this particular one on sale at the end of last year on Amazon. They had such a good price, and I do have a very small, it's either a 6 or a 12 palette, a travel palette, and I really, really like it. So I wanted to go ahead and jump up to this one here because the price was so good. So since it's brand new and I haven't really unboxed it or swatched it yet for you guys, I'm going to go ahead and set something up here, and I will be right back. What I like to do is to save the information that's on the wrappers of these pans, and I like to kind of correspond them with the chart that's going to go inside my tin. So I wanted to make sure and get that wrapper put on the back of the chart, so I had to put that together real quick. I love Rosa Gallery. They re-wet so very well. The pigment payout on every single Rosa Gallery paint that I have used never disappoints. They are made from organic and inorganic pigments, organic gum arabic, and they purport a high pigment concentration, clear and vibrant colors, easy dilution and brushing properties, and that is very true. And this particular one here also has a very nice granulation to it. So let's move on now to the Sennelier. Now this particular palette, I'm just going to add a little parenthetical note here, because if you are looking at this travel palette by Sennelier, I was so disappointed. It's cheap, it's flimsy, this tray falls out all the time and you kind of have to jiggle it to get back in. I think they could have been better. I think it could have been a better presentation. I just don't like the palette, but I love, 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 love the paints. Sennelier paints are made with honey, and of course they re-wet very well, but their sheer vibrancy is what I really, really love. And unfortunately, as I'm putting this particular one down, I think I've got a little bit of probably burnt sienna in that ultramarine pan, but there we go. This is better. Now that looks more true to form. This paint is just heaven to work with. Look at that. It just flows exactly like the other one that I mentioned that I really, really like, the M. Graham. I really enjoy how this paint flows, and you can see the difference there, and we'll swatch it again on some rough paper, but you can see how that one has a slightly different tune, and woo, look at that Schmincke Horridum. It was ready to come out. Oh my gosh. Okay, now I'm blue. I'm blue for sure. Let me clean things up a little bit and I'll be right back. Okay, crisis averted. I can use this sploosh of paint that's on the paper towel here and get some down here on our test so that we can swatch it out. Now, Schmincke Horridum is a German brand, very, very high quality paints. I really love them. I've never found anything from Schmincke Horridum that I was not impressed with. They use gum arabic. I always like to describe their paint manufacturing as using gum arabic as if you would describe a wine. Every year the gum arabic crop is going to be a little bit different, and they choose the finest every year according to their testers. So sometimes you may get a paint that in subsequent years is not the same. That's not to be considered a fault. It is simply a characteristic, a difference, which I suspect is most likely from choosing those different gum arabic crops. I think it's really a unique characteristic of the brand, and I really do like it. Utrecht is one that I have never tried before. So reading from the Utrecht website, they've been handcrafted in Brooklyn since 1949. So the boys, Harold and Norman Gulamarian, they were born in New York City to immigrant parents from Armenia. They both served in World War II, and then by the mid-20th century, New York City was at the epicenter of the art world, and demand for affordable quality art supplies was certainly growing. So they took advantage of that, and in 1949, Norman noticed a gap in the market for unprimed artists' linen. He teamed up with his brother, and together they began to import linen directly from Belgium. They named the brand Utrecht in honor of the local new Utrecht High School in Brooklyn. By the 1950s, they were supporting artists, doing very well in New York City. And in 1957, they had some new product development. 58, they merged into acrylics. 63, they definitely expanded their line to professionals. And by 66, they had a brick and mortar store. By the 1970s, they were viewed as the art world's best kept secret. They've expanded in the 90s. So a lot of really fast growth here, really, when you think of it. And then by 2013, Dick Blick Art Materials acquired Utrecht and its 45 retail stores and their paint manufacturing mill in Brooklyn. Today, Blick maintains the integrity of the beloved brand while expanding the Utrecht line of products. So they are really a pretty cool brand. In 2018, they definitely created a line of cadmium-free paints, and they've got a great vision toward the future. So Utrecht is a really fun one to explore. Now let's talk a little about White Knights, the paints from Russia. Reading to you a bit from their website, they are, part of their mission is geological exploration, conducting research and testing in their own laboratory, production of natural, non-organic pigments from the earth, and production of synthetic pigments such as cobalt, cadmium, and iron oxide pigments, production, packaging, and quality control of their finished goods. And they were originally called Leningrad paints, which you may have seen, and now they are called White Knights. The range now has 134 colors, and it also says that they use the maximum content of high-quality fine pigments and natural gum arabic binder. Each batch of initial ingredients through preliminary mandatory studies for compliance for standards. The translation is a little rough on this, sorry guys. The paints are available in pans of 2.5 milliliters and tubes of 10 milliliters. Watercolor in pans is semi-dry. It does not require soaking before work. The color is easily taken on the brush immediately after opening the package, and I do find that to be true. I really have enjoyed these paints, and if you have experience with them, please share it below, because I think that they're not very widely used right now because of the conflict, and I just don't reach for them because of where the palette is positioned on my shelf. But I really do like them, and when we're done here, you're going to see the granulation is really incredible on especially their Ultramarine Deep. So now let's take a look at our beloved Winsor Newton. You know, perhaps the best news of all, out of all of these paints, every single one that I have here, is they all come from a pedigree. They all are made with great care. They really do pay attention to little details, and I think no matter which brand you buy, you will find several things about each one that you really, really enjoy. Let's take just a quick second here and compare the pans. You can see the Daniel Smith pan is on the right, and the Winsor Newton is on the left. The Daniel Smith pan is hand-filled, and then the Winsor Newton has been extruded by machine. So let's just tip out the paint here, and you can kind of see how it looks like a little brick that's been cut. When the pigment comes out of the machine, it's like a Play-Doh fun factory. It comes out that way, and then they slice it and put it in the pans. Daniel Smith isn't loose or jiggly in there at all, but this one is a little bit. It's never a problem if that happens to you, and that can happen with a hand-poured pan as well. All you have to do is put a little drop, let that paint come out, and then put a little drop of water in the bottom, and then just simply place that paint back in. And as it dries, your paint will be stationary in the pan again and won't make that little rattling noise. If you are noise averse, like sometimes I am about some noises anyway, that can kind of drive you nuts. So if you're painting and things jiggle around in there, maybe that's a sound that you don't like with your palette. Well, all you have to do is put a little drop of water in there, and then that will get that paint to be stationary again. Winsor Newton has been around since the 1800s. They have a wonderful pedigree. This particular ultramarine that I have is the green shade, And it is rich, deep, transparent blue with green undertones, which is, of course, as we discussed, different from French Ultramarine, which has the red undertones. I'm going to kind of pull this up here so you can see the difference a little bit, but then I'm going to take a still photo and let you see what they look like black and white, because maybe that will be a good way for you to test the value difference on your monitor. So you might want to pause the screen when we get to that. Just real quickly about Winsor Newton Professional Watercolors. They do have a color range of 108 colors, and they were used by the famous artists Turner and Sargent. So let's go ahead and get to this still photo, and then I'm going to show you these on rough watercolor paper, because that's really where we can get granulation to sing its loudest. First things first, let's take a look at a still frame of our initial swatching sheet. Now, right off the bat, I hope your monitor is adjusted the way that you like it so that you can see the colors truly. You know, every monitor is different, but I can see quite a bit of difference here. I see some that are more vibrant in blue, some that are a little more subtle. And here it is in black and white. Your eyes haven't gone crazy on you. I wanted you to see kind of a little bit more of the patterns of shadows and depths of hue so that you can really tell. Maybe you see one that jumps out at you immediately that you like a little bit better. This was done with the noir setting on my iPhone, so that in case you ever want to do that with your artwork to test some values, that's a good way to do that. Here I'm going to slow pan across the rough watercolor paper. I used Arches Rough to do this portion of the test, and I really enjoy watching the granulation come to the surface, well, or stay in the valleys, however you want to look at it, by using the rough watercolor paper. You can kind of see that some brands really do have a granulation property that's greater than others. One thing that I am eternally pleased with each and every brand here is that they all show a certain degree of granulation. Some of them really stand out over others, however, and if you are looking for what I think, in my opinion, is the most granulation, look no further than the White Nights Ultramarine Deep. In my test on this little paper, that is number one. The next one I would say that comes in at intense and noticeable granulation would be Paul Rubens, followed by the Roman Schmal, Rosa Gallery, Da Vinci, Daniel Smith. Then it kind of gets into where everyone is about the same. The Mission Gold, Utrecht, all of those tend to be about the same level of granulation. And here you can see, judge for yourself, do some still frame shots, do a screenshot on this if you're watching it on your mobile device, and see which one you like the best. If you do a screenshot, then you can kind of zoom in and really see. Maybe you have some of these brands at home and your test will show up with a little bit different results than mine will. Here is that same swatch in black and white now on that noir setting on my iPhone. You can see that there are a few that are much, much darker. When you see that darker value, that is going to equate to a more intense pigment. The lighter values will equate to a less intense pigment. And again, I will confess I am completely human. It could have to do with the way I applied it. But from using these paints, I can definitely see that I've still got a few favorites and a few that I probably won't pull for as much. But I hope that you guys really enjoyed this comparison today of all of the ultramarine paints that I have. Do I not have a brand that you have and you love? If that's true, mention it in the comments. And if you aren't a member of my channel already, please consider doing so. There's a link to that in the description as well. Take care, everyone. Enjoy painting. Pull out your favorite color, do a few tests in different brands, and see what you think. Have a great week. Bye now.